The inheritance, my name is Leo, and if you're hearing this, I'm probably already gone. I'm recording this as a warning and as a confession. It all started when my reclusive uncle, Arthur, passed away. I barely knew him. He was a sound engineer, obsessed with recording the silences of old, abandoned places. He left me his entire estate, his small, isolated house deep in the Washington rainforest, and all his equipment. The first thing I noticed when I arrived wasn't the damp or the gloom, but the absolute quiet. It was a thick, heavy silence, like the forest was holding its breath. In his study, I found his life's work. Dozens of hard drives, meticulously labeled St. Ignatius Asylum, Boiler Room Silence, Blackwater Mill, Weaving Room Silence, and his final project. Simply labeled The House, Upstairs Hall Silence, Curious. I plugged in the drive for the asylum and put on his high-end headphones. The recording was perfect. It wasn't just an absence of sound. It was a texture. I could hear the faint, almost imperceptible settling of the building, the echo of nothingness. It was unnerving, but fascinating. Then I listened to his final recording, The House, Upstairs Hall Silence. It was different. Underneath the profound quiet, there was something else, a soft, wet, rhythmic sound, like something moist being gently squeezed and released. Squelch, pause, squelch. It was barely audible, but once I heard it, I couldn't unhear it. It made my skin crawl. I told myself it was a pipe, or an animal in the walls, but Uncle Arthur's notes, scrawled in the margins of his sound logs, told a different story. They are not in the sounds, but in the spaces between. They are drawn to curated silence. They nest in it. Do not listen for too long. You become the silence, the rule that night. I heard it for real, not through headphones, but in the house itself. I was lying in bed, and the oppressive quiet of the forest was absolute. Then, from the upstairs hall, I heard it, squelch, pause, squelch. My blood ran cold. I grabbed a flashlight and crept upstairs, my heart hammering in my ears. The hallway was empty. The sound stopped the moment I opened my door. The next day, I delved deeper into his notes. I pieced together his rules, his understanding of what he called the silence eaters. They are parasitic entities that exist in a state of perceptual blind spot. They are not invisible, but your brain refuses to process them unless you catch them in the very edge of your vision. They are attracted to, and physically manifest within, prolonged, perfected silence. My uncle's recordings were like ringing a dinner bell. They are slow, patient. They don't attack, they infest. They get closer and closer, feeding on the quiet you create by holding your breath, by trying not to make a sound. The only way to drive them back is to break the silence. Sudden, loud, and chaotic noise forces them to recede. But it doesn't kill them. It just makes them wait. I felt a wave of hysterical laughter bubble up. It was insane. But that night, the squelching was at my bedroom door. I could see a faint, woolly smudge on the wooden floorboards in the moonlight, something that shouldn't be there. I remembered the rule. I didn't open the door. Instead, I grabbed two metal pans from the kitchen and smashed them together as hard as I could. The screech of metal was violently loud. The squelching stopped instantly. The descent for a week, I lived in a state of siege. I slept with a Bluetooth speaker blasting white noise. I wore headphones playing busy cafe sounds. I was exhausting myself, jumping at every creak of the house. My mistake was thinking I could reason with it. I thought if I could just record one, get proof, I could get help. I set up a camera in the hallway, pointed at the spot where I'd seen the oily smudge. I let the silence stretch for a full minute, my finger hovering over the play button on my phone, ready to blast noise. I saw it on the camera's live feed. It was like a heat haze. A distortion in the air, man-shaped, but all wrong. Its surface shimmered, and with each shimmer, I could hear that soft, wet squelch. It was standing perfectly still, at the far end of the hall. Then, it took a step forward, and another. It wasn't walking. It was sliding, its movement sensed with that horrible sound. Terror locked my muscles. I was frozen, watching it glide close on the screen. It was halfway down the hall. Then 2/3. It was going to reach the camera. It was going to reach me. At the last second, I fumbled and pressed play. A deafening air horn sound erupted from my phone. The figure on the screen dissolved like smoke in a gale, and the hallway was empty. I had won. But I was shaking, sobbing. I had looked into the heart of that silence, and it had looked back. This is Leo. My last log. I'm in the study. The door is locked. I've barricaded it with Uncle Arthur's heavy oak desk, the one covered in the deep gouts I now understand weren't from moving furniture. The windows are sealed shut with layers of duct tape, not to keep something out, but to muffle any sound that might try to get in. It's been 3 days since my experiment in the hallway. 3 days since I looked into the heart of that distortion. 3 days since the squelching stopped. At first, I thought it was victory, a frantic, desperate kind of victory. After the air horn blast from my phone made the figure dissolve, I spent the next 24 hours in a state of hysterical productivity. I never turned the sound off. I had my phone plugged into a portable charger, connected to a set of computer speakers I found in a box. I curated a playlist of chaos, construction sites, subway stations, rock concerts, thunderstorms. The house was a temple of noise, a fortress built on sonic artillery, and I was its crazed general, pacing the floors, my ears ringing, my nerves shot. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Every time my eyelids drooped, the memory of that shimmering, man-shaped void sliding towards me would jolt me awake. The squelch was gone from the house, but it was now etched into the very fabric of my mind. I could hear it in the white noise between tracks, a phantom limb of sound. On the second day, the exhaustion became a physical weight. My body was shutting down. My hands trembled constantly. I knew I needed sleep, but the fear was a potent, toxic caffeine in my veins. I decided on a compromise. I would sleep in the study, with the door locked and the noise playing. Just a few hours. That was all I needed. I pushed the desk against the door, slumped into Arthur's worn leather chair, and let the sounds of a busy London intersection fill the room. The rumble of double-decker buses, the chatter of pedestrians, the beeping of crosswalks. It was alien and jarring in this forest sanctuary, but it was life. It was safety. I fell into a fitful, twitching sleep. I don't know how long I was out. An hour, maybe 2. But I was woken not by a sound, but by a lack of one. The speakers were silent. The power strip's little red light was off. A power cut. The silence that rushed in to fill the void was absolute. It was more than an absence of noise. It was a physical presence. Thick and suffocating, like being submerged in oil. My heart didn't just pound. It flailed in my chest, a wild bird trapped in a cage of bone. I held my breath, my entire body rigid, listening. Nothing. No squelching. No footsteps. No scratching at the door. Just the deafening, perfect quiet of the house and the forest holding its breath with me. And then I felt it. Not a sound, but a sensation. A pressure change. The air in the room grew heavy, dense. It was cold, a deep, penetrating chill that seeped through my clothes and into my skin. I was shivering, my teeth wanting to chatter, but I clenched my jaw shut, terrified of the noise they would make. That's when I understood the true nature of my uncle's notes. I had been thinking of the silence eaters as external predators, like wolves circling a campfire. I was wrong. Their condition. An atmospheric cancer. My noise hadn't driven them away. It had merely suppressed the symptoms. And now, in this sudden, enforced silence, the disease was flaring up with a vengeance. I fumbled for my phone in the pitch blackness. My hands were so numb with cold and fear I could barely work the touchscreen. I finally got the flashlight on, swinging the beam round the room. Empty. I opened my sound app, my thumb slick with sweat, searching for a track, any track. The flashlight on my phone flickered. Not a power-saving flicker, but a violent, strobing seizure of light. In the frantic pulses of illumination, I saw it. It was in the corner of the room, where the shadows were deepest. It wasn't a shimmering heat haze anymore. It was more defined. Still a distortion, a hole in reality. But now I could make out suggestions of form. Long, thin limbs that seemed to be folded in on themselves. A smooth, ovate head with no features, just a surface that seemed to drink the light, reflecting nothing. And its texture, it was like looking at a television tuned to a dead channel, but black and white and wet. It wasn't moving. It was just present, occupying the silence I had created by sleeping, by holding my breath, squelch. The sound didn't come from the corner. It came from everywhere. It was in the walls, in the floor, in the very air molecules vibrating between us. It was the sound of the thing, breathing, existing. I don't know. I finally found a tracker recording of a firework display and slammed the volume to maximum. Sudden, roaring boom of a mortar launch, followed by the crackle and whistle of a shell bursting, filled the study. The light from my phone steadied. The crushing cold receded, not all at once, but like a tide pulling back. The pressure in the room normalized. The corner was empty. I sat there, in Arthur's chair, weeping with sheer, unadulterated relief and terror. I had seen it, truly seen it, and I had survived. But the cost was becoming clear. This was a war of attrition, and I was running out of ammunition. My sanity was my currency, and I was spending it fast. That was yesterday. Today, everything changed. The fear is still there, a constant, humming bass line in my soul. But something else has taken root alongside it. A profound and terrifying sense of peace. It started this morning. I was exhausted, running on fumes. The constant noise, which had been my shield, was beginning to feel like an assault. The construction sounds were grating. The crowd noises felt mocking and alien. I felt a headache building behind my eyes, a tight, painful band round my skull. On a whim, I opened my sound app and, instead of selecting heavy machinery or city traffic, I tapped on a folder I'd never opened before. It was labeled Arthur's Silences. I'd been avoiding them, of course. They were the source of all this, but a morbid, exhausted curiosity gripped me. I selected one at random, Blackwater Mill, weaving room silence. I didn't play it out loud. I plugged in my uncle's high-end headphones, the ones he'd use for his work. The ones I found his final note tucked inside. I pressed play. The silence was immaculate. It was the polar opposite of the aggressive noise I'd been surrounding myself with. It was deep, velvety, and vast. After the auditory violence of the past few days, it felt like sinking into a cool, dark bath. I could hear the subtle, almost musical resonance of the empty room, the ghost of industry, the patient sigh of dust settling over decades. It was beautiful, and in that beauty, I felt the fear begin to unclench its fist from round my heart. For the first time in days, my shoulders relaxed, the tension in my jaw released. I took a full, deep breath, and it didn't feel like I was sucking in fear. It felt like I was breathing properly for the first time. That's when I found it. The final note. It was a single, yellowed sheet of paper, folded so small it had been wedged deep into the headphone's cushion. I'd missed it before. My hands were steady as I unfolded it. The writing was my uncle's, but it was different from the frantic scrawl in his sound logs. This was neat, precise, almost serene. It read, "My dearest nephew, if you are reading this, you have listened. You have truly listened, and you have begun to understand. I have spent a lifetime running from sound, seeking solace in the quiet places. I thought I was studying silence. I was wrong. I was cultivating it. I was preparing a garden, and in doing so, I became the soul. They do not feed on the silence itself. That was my greatest error. They feed on the one who creates it, the listener, the quiet one, the one who holds their breath in the dark, who becomes the still, focal point round which the silence can coalesce. The longer you listen, the more you attune yourself to their frequency, the more you become a part of their ecosystem. You become an anchor, a beacon. And when they are driven back by noise, they do not leave. They cannot. The connection is made. The bridge is built. Noise simply forces them to retreat. Inside, they fold themselves into the quiet spaces you carry within you. They nest in the hollow of your held breath. In the pauses between your heartbeats, the peace you are beginning to feel is not your own. It is theirs. It is the peace of the deep ocean, of the void between stars. It is a final and absolute surrender. I am sorry I have drawn you into my garden, but the soil here is rich, and it is time for me to sleep. With love and a quiet mind, Arthur, I read the note 3 times. Each time, the words didn't frighten me. They felt true. They felt like an explanation for the strange serenity that was washing over me. The headache was gone. The tremors in my hands had stopped. I felt a warmth spreading through my chest. A core of profound stillness. I looked round the study, the barricaded door. The taped windows, it all seemed so silly now, the frantic struggles of a frightened animal. I didn't need to keep the silence eaters out because they weren't out there anymore. The squelching had stopped because it had moved. It was no longer in the hallway, outside the door. It was in here with me. Inside me, I don't feel invaded. I feel occupied, completed. The constant, frantic internal monologue of my fear has been replaced by this warm, humming quiet. The urge to make noise, to fight, to scream, it's all gone. It feels vulgar and necessary, like shouting in a library or laughing at a funeral. I've turned off all the speakers. I've unplugged them. The silence in the house is no longer oppressive. It's a comfort. It's a warm, heavy blanket on a cold night. It's the lullaby my mother never sang. I can feel it nesting. It's a strange sensation, not unpleasant. It's like a deep, internal pressure, a settling. In the quiet of my own body, I can sometimes feel that soft, rhythmic squelch, but it's muted now, internalized. It's the sound of my new tenant making itself at home. It's the sound of my own stillness. This will be my last log, not out of fear, but out of a lack of anything left to say. The story is over. The conflict is resolved. I lost. But it doesn't feel like losing. It feels like coming home. So this is my warning. To anyone who finds these recordings, to anyone who seeks out the quiet places, who listens to the empty spaces on old tapes, who craves solitude and silence, be careful what you listen for. You might find something there that finds the resonance within you, something that recognizes the quiet parts of your own soul as fertile ground. And it might decide that you are not a person to be feared, or fought, or fled from. It might decide that you are the perfect place, a sanctuary, a nest. I think I'm going to sleep now. A real sleep, not a fearful, fitful lapse of consciousness, but a deep, dreamless, and silent slumber. The silence is so beautiful. It's finally complete.